Hello, folks. Lon Jenkins here. I am doing another indoor project since it's cold outside. I'm going to replace this soap pump with this glass rinser right here. We don't use the soap pump that much, so I just figured I'd show you what I got going on here. So if you look up under here, you're going to see that I have this big bottle, and that's a lot of soap. It's okay to have, but I think I want this glass rinser on here more than that. And while I'm under here, I'm going to fix a little leak. So the first thing I'll do is I'll turn off this hot water line, and I can tell that it's the hot water line because one, I left the tags on there and I wrote a little H on it. And number two, the braided line, it has a red stripe on it. I like using the metal braided lines for my hot and cold water because that red stripe and that blue stripe tells you right away what it is. So I cut that off. Now those braided lines, the ones that I have, they have a built-in washer. So I don't necessarily need a washer for this. And I like those because if you have a problem, you usually can just take it off. You don't need to find the right size washer. You can put it back on. These things last a pretty long time. So that's the cool thing about getting the braided lines. Now I'll get my crescent wrench here. I'll take this off. I didn't make it too tight when I put these in. And the little device that comes with the glass rinser, it's like a little T device, a little splitter. I'm not going to tighten it too tight because I want to wait to see exactly where the lines fall, because later on, I don't want to have to readjust. I want those lines to not have any kinks or knots or anything in them. I want them to just flow naturally. Now I'll take this big bottle off, and then I have to take this nut off, this plastic nut off the bottom of it. Now this plastic nut, it seems like I tightened it very tight, but I don't believe I did. It's just that the soap, it somehow may have worked its way down in there, dried up, and it was tight. But, I finally got it. It's not terrible, but putting this 220-pound plus body up under here and trying to get, my arms and fingers up in this spot, it was just a little bit difficult, but nothing that was terrible. I'll pull the hose out of it and then finish taking off this nut. And when I turn on the water up top, you see on the left, it's hot. It didn't turn on. On the right, it's cold. So give this a little bit of rinse right here and wipe down. Now, I don't know what's up with the sink. I'm going to replace that probably next year's project. But for whatever reason, it has pitted rust on it. So that's probably some kind of, overseas type sink. It doesn't rust in the bottom. It just has these pits on the side. So whatever. Wanted to make sure that the brush and all of that lined up properly. So now I'll just tighten this in. You don't want to over tighten. You don't want to over tighten anything. So as much as possible, you want to try to hand tighten. Maybe give it one turn with something else, but that's good enough. Now I'll take these washers. There's a rubber seal and a metal washer, and then a clamp that holds it up underneath. And I'll put that on there. This is the water in line where the hot water will shoot up through there to rinse the glass. Give it a nice little, turn, tighten. Then I'll do the same thing. Now, remember that T-line that I was telling you about, the little splitter area? Now that I see how the hose is going to fall, I can make this the way I want it to be. So everything comes down the proper way, because later on you don't want to have to undo all of this because your hose is going on the opposite side of where it needs to be plugged in. You just want that thing to be, as loose as possible. Now I'll get the smaller wrench and I'll do the hot line coming into that little splitter, that little T valve. You can see that it has a red stripe on it. That tells me that it's the hot. Next thing, once I have everything all hooked up, I won't turn on the hot water until I wipe this thing down, because I want to make sure that when I turn the hot water on, when I put, some tissue up there again, that it doesn't get wet. I turned on the hot water. Nothing is leaking out. Now I'm going to show you where I had this leak in this trap. So let's take this off. A little bit of water just, comes out of there. No big deal. And that's why I wasn't going through that tiny little hole there. And that's what came out of it. I don't know what all that stuff is. The only thing we do is, we have some drinks down here, soapy water, wash some glasses. But I did realize that happens in some other sinks that we had. So I, replaced those as well while I was at it. And I don't want it to go down in this sink because I just did this sink. This is the downstairs restroom sink. So throw that in the trash. So now when you look under here, everything is nice. Everything is clean. You can see that the line that came with the product does not have, a stripe on it, because they don't know if you're going to be rinsing with cold water or hot water. So they give you a plain, hose. You just know by the intake that you have that red stripe. No water is down below on the, leaking down the cabinet. And so now when we go up to it, let me show you how this thing works. Gives a little more finished look to the wet bar. So, the soap dispenser was no big deal, but this was a nice little gift that mommy got me.
Helping you through the market's ups and downs. What about communication? We check in regularly to keep you informed. Which means you'll help us stay on track? Yes, as a fiduciary.
So let's get a glass out. And again, sorry for the focus. But I'll show you. I'll move it around. When you press this thing down, it stays down, and that brush goes 100 miles an hour, and it scrubs the hell out of a glass. I'll show you that. And I can put a bigger glass in there, but the smaller glasses, little water comes out, gets on the counter or whatever. It doesn't make a complete mess of things, but smaller glasses will get a little bit of water on the counter. But every counter you have is going to get water on it. So I guess this thing is pretty nice. I'll use it to rinse the glass before I serve it to my guests, and then afterwards too. But you'll have a nice hot glass. All right, this has been the Lon Jenkins. Peace.